Straight facts. I'm joined by my man Sav. Lots to delve into today. Lots going on in football during this, not the final international break of the season, but it's the one that we get where we get a nice 3 months, 4 months of football after this. But Sav, how are you, mate? You well? You doing good?
Yeah, man, I'm good. Yeah, it's been one of those days. I've done 2 streams so far today. One was very good and one was absolutely shambolic. Yeah, other than that, I'm good, man. I'm good.
I hear you, and I will ask you about that later. But viewers, we're going to be talking about the title race today and who's really in it. We're going to be looking at some big news at Man United with Richard Arnold having been sacked today. The man, I know he's leaving the club. Man's been sacked with Jean-Claude Blanc, a very good-looking, I don't mean physically, CEO coming in. We're also going to be looking at Manchester City's £712 million shocker that has rivals absolutely fuming. So there's a few things to talk about today, but I wanted to start the show with Sava with Spurs. What happened at the weekend, mate? I thought you guys were winning the title. I know you didn't say this, but I'm gonna, because other Spurs fans did, I'm gonna say it to you anyway. You said you were winning the league. You said you were going unbeaten. You said you wouldn't lose to Wolves, and you got beat in the end. What went wrong, Sav?
Yeah. Just I think it showed underlying just how fragile we are when you remove a couple of players. I think it showed the depth is very much in its infancy. It needs a lot of work. And for me, he got it. I'll be honest, I thought he got it wrong. I thought he got the team selection wrong. I thought that we didn't get going at any point. We played 3 holding midfielders. And for me, again, this backs up what I've been saying the whole time, why I don't think we're in title races, Terry, is because we have the tendency to put in performances like that. You're seeing Dyer and Davis back in at centre-half. And I said to you all along, we are 1 injury away from Dyer and Davis, right? And the big one that no one's talking about, but I say no one, that's completely not true. The big one that is being overlooked is James Maddison.
Yeah.
If you take James Maddison out of Tottenham Hotspur, we are back to where we've been the last 3 or 4 years, which is a hard-working team, but with no creativity, no playmaker. So I thought we'd lose. I predicted a 3-2 defeat, so a 2-1 defeat, I suppose, is better than I thought. We didn't let him free, but mate, yeah. They looked like they were going to score every time they went forward, and it's another game where I'm sitting there saying, "Thank God Wolves don't have finishers." Bro, I thought they attacked us for fun.
You're right. It's 2 games running where, in terms of balance of play, reviewing the performance, you could have lost 5, 6, 7, 1 in terms of the amount of openings, the amount of opportunities for different reasons, of course. One game, we had 9 men on the halfway line with the stratospheric line, as we were calling it last week.
Yes.
But it's one of those moments where I know that the football fan community, it never goes down well, the whole "I told you so." But I was sort of sitting there right at the end of the game, and I was thinking to myself, Sav, and Kate, and Alan, and many others, but they're the ones who stood out in my mind on the terrace, where I thought they were so right. It's unbelievable. They weren't saying you can't be happy, that you can't celebrate, you can't say we haven't improved, but this notion that 1, injuries were never going to happen, and 2, there wasn't the possibility of a regression of just results and performance with these injuries was a nonsense. Because one of the biggest fallacies that spread in football about managers is my manager can improve anyone he buys. So I saw a debate today on the Overlap, and the question at the end was, would Pep be successful at Man United? And I think they all said yes. And I listened, and one thing that I think it was Ian Wright said, along with Roy Keane, was, yeah, because Pep, everywhere he goes, he just improves people. He just improves people. He just improves everybody. But I think Pep's amazing, and I think he'd have done better than any other manager we've had in the last 10 years. I think he would have won some big things, but he wouldn't do what he's doing at City because the structure isn't there. And yes, he can improve people, but he didn't try and this isn't a dig at Pep. This is to say that even Pep, even Fergie, even Paisley, even Sir Matt Busby, Bill Nicholson, there's only a limit to how much they can improve someone, because Pep couldn't turn Joe Hart into Edison. You know, you still have to buy people. And so for a football club, fans at Tottenham to think that after 10 games, he could turn Eric Dyer into a top-class centre-back because the system works is a nonsense. I can't believe Spurs were gaslit into believing in that.
Look, I think you've got footballers that can be improved. However, every manager's got a different style of play. So if you're taking your Pep Guardiola example, there are players in the world that will be able to play Pep Guardiola's standard football and players that won't. And he will look at the ones that can be upskilled, that can play his way, and he'll look at the ones that can't and he'll let them leave. That's the same with any manager. It's the same as Jose Mourinho in his peak. You've got to have a certain type of engine. You've got to have a certain type of work rate. Doesn't matter how skillful you are. If you're not putting in the graft, you're gone. He will work out very soon, is this player a good player that I can improve to get that work rate, or are they just not good enough? Pep's no different. Being the best manager in the world doesn't mean that you can just take crap footballers and make them brilliant. It doesn't. It means you can realize their potential. The difference is if Pep Guardiola had gone to a Man United, let's be fair, it's the same as if he goes anywhere. The first thing he's going to say is, all right, I'll come to your club, but I want to completely change the back room. I want to completely change the academy. I want to completely change the scouting system. And this is the difference, that when he's gone to City, and I had someone come on my channel the other day, and they said, it's oil money. It's the only reason they win. To which my response was, sorry, who hasn't got billionaires? Everyone's got billionaire owners. The difference is Man City spend their money well. Man City implemented a world-class academy. Man City have had, their director of football's been in place for all this time. But you're right. To bring it back to Ange Postecoglou, I'm sure there are going to be players that he looks at and goes, you know what? You didn't do well under Antonio Conte, but that's because it wasn't the right style for you. I can make you better. There's going to be players where he goes, you can't do what I want. Tungo and Ndombele, right? Spurs play a high-pressing, high-energy game. You think he's looking at Ndombele and going, you know who I need in a battle? I need this guy. I need this guy who looks like he's 3 stone overweight and can't run. He's not. He's going to get rid of him.
Exactly, mate. And that's why I think, yes, you can improve people. They can look good for a certain period of time. But Eric Dyer is always going to be Eric Dyer. Yeah. Maguire is always going to be Maguire at Man United. A lot of these, what you've seen from people over a period of time is pretty much as good as they're going to be. And, people will always say to me, yeah, but you back Rashford and you back Bruno. Yeah, I do to a degree. But if you can bring me in better, then I'm up for it. Like I don't have that. That's what one thing me and Lee Gunner really agree on. I don't have that personal connection to a player that supersedes my club improving, and I never have. It's why I don't understand the weird Ramsdale Raya argument the media are creating, because it's the first time ever I've seen a club look to improve a player and the media turn it into a bad thing. Is and I think it's because Ramsdale, England goalkeeper connections, the media, etc. But yeah, I do think some Spurs fans had a rude awakening at the weekend. Almost, I can't believe this is happening, but it's because they were gaslit from day one. And what's unfortunate about being gaslit is that when you realize that you've been led down the garden path, it actually makes you enjoy the process and the games and everything else moving forward as much as you normally would, because you feel a little bit disheartened. And that's why if you keep your feet on the ground and stay humble early, even when you have these setbacks, because who knows how far Big Ange is taking you, even when you have the setbacks, you can remain positive. And I know that yourself, like yourself and Kate, you get seen as negative, but you're actually positive about the direction you're going in, but you just know it's baby steps.
Listen, I always say this about everything. I said it about Chelsea at the beginning of the year. I said it about Spurs. New managers coming into a club, whether they're given 1 million, 1 billion, 300 million, it doesn't matter, right? First of all, you've got to have time to implement your philosophy. And there are footballers at this club that are still probably struggling slightly to get with that Ange Postecoglou style of football. And that's to be expected, because you know what? You can't do everything in absolutely one window. But for me, I think there's so much emphasis on the word positive and the word negative. I don't get it. I just think not every opinion needs to be positive or negative. I just think sometimes it comes down to common sense for me. Like, I get it. I
Don't
know
use that word's illegal on the internet, bro. Chill out. Chill out.
I know, but it does, doesn't it? It's like, so I don't mind. Listen, look, you know, over time, I don't mind if people want to call me negative for what I've said about Spurs. That's fine. But Terry, I've been called negative as a Spurs fan for the last 23 years under these owners, and I'm still waiting for something to happen for me to go, God, wow, I'm in the mud. I'm still sitting here waiting for that moment to happen. What's happened? It's the same as anything in life. It's the same as anything in life. Spurs have had a really good start to the season in those 10 games, right? But what that does is it clouds people's judgments to what's happening long term and the bigger picture, as opposed to what is a good moment. And I get it. People want to live in that good moment. They want to have that feel factor. That's fine. And I'm not knocking that, and everyone's welcome to that feeling. I think as a slightly older Spurs fan who's been there, seen it and done it, I don't live in a moment. I look at the bigger picture and go, okay, yeah, I like it. And I keep doing this, Terry. We're doing that. I'm happy with that. We can keep doing that. That's fine. This season, get back into Europe. Next summer, then you get some better players and hopefully you're in Europa League, Champions League, whatever it is. The next summer you go again. But what's happened to that 10-game spell kind of made everyone a bit entitled, lose their mind over everything. And then what we had was we had fans coming onto your like not just your channel, but loads of channels saying things like, oh, Sava wants us to lose. Sava doesn't want Spurs to lose. Sava's never wanted Spurs to lose.
All right, Dobby.
Sava.
Talking about yourself with a verb. I love it. I love it, Sav. I love it.
But no, but look, at the end of the day, Sava, this guy, I'd love us to win a league. I've never seen us win a league.
Yeah.
But at the same time, can I, as a grown-up football fan that's seen all these things, can I look at this squad, this manager, this team, look at our opposition, and can I, hand on heart, Terry, say that's a title-winning team if I've ever seen one? It's not.
Mate, no, and I agree with you. And the problem is it's not about being right and wrong. And it never has. And sometimes we all get things right. We all get things wrong. It's very, very normal. But there is an obsession with it online now. And I've put a few tweets out in the last few days and given a few opinions on our next sort of talking point. So it's a fairly good segue. We can just float about the two of them around what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is doing. So, yes, it wasn't my number one choice for Sir Jim to come in. But I said in a lot of the videos when there was talk of him being the number one target that I wasn't as against it as a lot of United fans were, because in my personal opinion, if somebody is genuinely siding with billions of pounds of their own money, they're going to do the very best job possible for the football club to win. They're not going to be able to make the money out of it the way the Glazers did, who bought it for nothing because they bought it with debt. So even if Sir Jim wants to make profit in the future, he's only going to do that by us being successful. So that's a positive element for me. That was twisted into, well, you prefer him to the Qataris. No, that's not what I said. There's some stories I've read where the Glazers might basically have a veto still over the sporting decisions. And if that's the case and they still make the final decision, then I don't believe it's going to progress us moving forward, because they've stunted us at development. They've stunted us at that level now, at that stage of things, for 10 years. So just because Sir Jim's here, if they still get the final say over the sporting element, I'm not convinced we'll get better. But if it turns out they don't, and Sir Jim has that vote, and he's bringing in, as we know, Jean-Claude Blanc, the likes of John Mersall and Richard Arnold, who've already been dismissed today, all go, and he brings in a whole new group of people, then you can look at it and you can change your mind and say, well, I'm going to be a bit more optimistic. I'm going to wait and see how things pan out. Even my thoughts on the manager may change if it comes out that we were aware the manager isn't playing the style of football he's famed for, and we're now going to help him to continue building a squad, but encourage him to play more that way. Forget what he was told by the previous sporting directors, etc. Then my opinion on him may change again. And I think that's the problem that we live in nowadays, is people like give an opinion and they're so desperate to be right, they won't change when information changes. You know, I'm pretty sure if you guys won your next 10 games, kept on improving, bought well in January, and then somebody said to you after 25 games, 7 points clear at the top, looking great, do you think we could win the league? You'd have said, I think we might be able to, because the information has changed. There's more of a body work, more data to go into. And we just live in a strange world now where sometimes if you change your opinion, you're called a flip-flop. And then other times, if you're not don't have the right opinion, you're attacked for it. And
I think changing opinions are okay. Changing opinions are okay. I just think it's when they're changed from game to game to game to game. I see YouTubers do it. I see YouTubers put out videos now like, this player's the best player in the world because he had a good game on Sunday. And then the next week it's, this player's well overrated. Look, I think, as you said, it's, if you can gain if you gain new information that changes things. So if Spurs for the next 10, 15 games won all 10, 15, Spurs are top come the end of January. We've had a good January window. And you say to me, can we win the league? Yeah, why not? But when you're asking me now in what are we, November, exactly midway through November, I'm looking at squads, I'm looking at everything and thinking, I just don't think it's there. And anyone that's watched us play closely knows we're not quite there. I would think that. The very same Spurs fans who I was saying, who were saying we were going to win the league, I'm now watching their YouTube shows and they're saying things like, oh, well, it is his first season and you need time. And it's like, it's amazing what a couple of defeats do, right? And
yeah,
look, we're a decent team that need time. Ange isn't a miracle worker. Ange is going to get things wrong. And it remains to be seen whether or not our chairman is going to back him. So,
mate, 100%. And this is what I come down to. Even if the new owners come in, or the new part owners come in at Man United, and there is an improvement, I'm still going to sit there and keep my feet on the ground, because I need to see far more evidence, far more facts, far more data, or whatever phrase you want to use. I don't care, that we are changing. And it's interesting, really, with Man United sacking Richard Arnold. I do believe is change in the right direction. And the reason that I say that is because when people say, well, you can't blame the Glazers for everything at Man United, it's always a lot of people, when they have these conversations, it's very basic. It's such a basic conversation. It's like ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's okay, they're not to blame for every little thing that goes wrong per se, but the buck still stops with them, because
of course,
the board have created a lot of our problems in the last decade, whether it be hiring the wrong managers, hiring the wrong recruitment team. The fact that even right now, our board, the manager and his coaching team, and our recruitment team all see the vision for the club's style of football and players needed as different. That in itself is a Glazer created problem, because under their watch, where they get the final say, they have employed all these different silos of people that are working against one another. So it is on them. However, we have seen at Manchester United, between when they arrived in 2005 and 2013, there was financial restraints that were on the club because of the debt. We know that because we never quite replaced certain people early enough or well enough, even though we still spent. But we still won because we were run well by Sir Alex and by David Gill. So I'm still of the belief, and I've said this for years, even though I want the Glazers gone, we can still be successful with them if they make the right decisions in terms of who's on the board, who does our recruitment, and of course, who the manager is, and ensuring that they're all pulling in the same direction. That in itself will see Man United become an exponentially better team just by the recruitment team, the board, and the head coach, manager, and his coaching staff all having the same vision. That point blank makes us a better football club almost overnight. And we've heard the likes of Sean Longstaff speak about this at Newcastle and say that as soon as the new owners came in and there was a clear vision and everybody started pulling in the same direction, it was almost instantaneous. We felt an uplift in the squad everywhere day to day, and it manifested itself on the football pitch. And those things are needed. And I see the same type of thing with Spurs. It's almost a case of no matter what Big Ange does, no matter how well he gets you playing. And yes, there's been the stories from Daniel Levy. Yes, there's been new promises. But until you see those promises fulfilled, not one summer, not 2 summers, but 3, 4, 5, 6, you're never going to get the sustainable change you need. And Spurs, once upon a time, were at the top of the pyramid. Because people forget this. You guys were the first team in English football history to do a double. Once upon a time, Spurs were doing things that nobody else had done in England before. And to get back to that, it takes years of commitment, years of change, you're not just going to get it straight away, not with the competition you're up against in the Premier League. It takes years.
Yeah, listen, this goes back to what we've been talking about for a few months, that it's not just always about a change of manager. Yeah, a change of manager for the direction of philosophy on the pitch, but it goes back to, can we blame, like you're saying about the Glazers, can you blame them for everything? Probably not, but overarching, they run the company. Right? If you can look at it in business terms, overarching is there's a CEO, he's in charge, she's in charge, whichever it may be. They make the decisions. They decide who they're going to hire, who they're going to fire. They employ the people below them that employ the people below them that employ the people below them. So the buck stops there. Spurs, for me, look, we've started making some really good moves this year. We have. And there's things I wouldn't expect people who aren't Spurs fans to really care too much about this. But, we've got a brand new director of football now. We've got new scouts, right? We've got new academy directors, new academy scouts, new academy coaches. So there's all these things that are being implemented, Terry, which are really, really positive. But at the same time, like you said, that doesn't happen. It doesn't go, oh, new academy director, let's win everything. New philosophy, let's win everything. It takes time. It takes years of these things being implemented to start bearing fruit. And unfortunately, we live in an era where football fans don't want time. Football fans don't want to give managers time. They don't want to give directors of football time. They don't want to give players time. Everything is now. If a player is bad at the weekend, he'll be vilified. I mean, I saw Vardiel made a mistake at the weekend. And straight away, the first chat I was in was, oh, what a waste of 100 million. You're like, hang on. Josko Vardiel was like the most sought after centre back in world football. He makes a mistake and he's still a young guy and he's gone. So look, for me, time is everything. Like you said, time, implementation. That's what Liverpool have had all this time. Man City have had. That's what Man U had under Fergie. All that time. Arsenal under Wenger. When you have got those plans in place, look at the Barcelona team under Pep Guardiola and under under those scouts, director of football, the owner at Barca at that time. The academy was great. The first team was great. The scouting was great. Now that's all been ripped up. Barcelona are very up and down. So time, consistency, and patience. I think a bit of patience from fans. I think that really goes a long way.
Mate, absolutely, it certainly does, and especially in the Premier League, because in the Premier League you're up against City. From a Spurs point of view, Man United point of view, Spurs, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, all got billionaire owners, all of them investing in one way, shape, or form. So it isn't, no disrespect, if you were a team in France, or if you were a team in Portugal right now, and you suddenly got new billionaire owners that came in, had more money than anybody else, you could jump right to the top very quickly because you're leapfrogging everybody because you've suddenly got more resource, more clout, more power. When there's already multiple teams like that in your league, it does take a little bit more time, if that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And look, it is what it is. I'll always go back to this. It's about time. Even if an owner, let's say someone came in and took Spurs over now. Right, and I want to ask you a question in a second as well. Okay. But let's say billionaire owners came in and took Tottenham now. I don't really care where they're from. We don't want to go down that route. Someone comes in, takes over Spurs. They're worth £20 billion. In that window, now all of a sudden, the whole of the football world goes, well, Spurs must win the league this season because their owners are now the richest in the world.
Yeah.
Right? But what they forget is you've all of a sudden got to now still leapfrog over everybody who's already been laying that groundwork, right? You've got to leapfrog over. It's the same thing with, like, I keep having this conversation about Man City and Arsenal. It's all right having an 11 that might be able to go toe-to-toe with Man City, but you've got to build the squad that can go toe-to-toe with Man City. You've got to build the youth team that can go toe-to-toe with Man City, the scouting network. It's a lot of these things that change you from being here to there, but as I said, we're not in that era now. We're in that era of immediate success is needed. Chelsea fans think they should win the league every year. United fans think they should be winning leagues. Arsenal are saying, Arteta, this is his last chance. He's got to win leagues.
Well, it's why in the summer when why in the summer when everybody said Arteta's got to win the league, but you're also saying Klopp's got to win the league, Pep's got to win the league, Chelsea got to win the league. Yeah. That they can't all, and that's what if you have that much. This is what happens with opinions, and I've noticed this, and we'll talk about this on VAR more later. In a vacuum, an opinion can be right. When you're talking solely about one club, you okay, that makes sense in the context of this. But whether your opinion makes sense on a wider scale, you have to expand it. When you start to expand it, if it starts falling down, when you start applying that logic to multiple other clubs, then you know as a train of thought, it may not be the best practice for everybody. And you have to look at whether your examples work in a vacuum or whether they actually work as an entirety. And they don't always seem to do that, to be fair.
So before I've got a big question I'll ask you in a second, but just the last point on this topic. If Man City win the league this year, right, it's expected of Pep. Does that automatically mean that Klopp and Arteta have failed? Because they can't all fail. Like they can't all be expected to win it and all fail if they lose it. You can only have one winner. So what we can't be doing is saying that 3 managers can all fail for not winning the league. Like there has to be a hierarchy.
The answer depends upon how pedantic you are.
Sure.
How much you focused on the fact that, yes, theoretically, 19 teams every single season fail. But that, for me, is what I call vacuum thinking when you apply it to all 19, because you're looking at that singular season. And you could argue within that season, you could say you've failed. But where were you the previous season? How long has a manager been at the club? How much have you spent? What's the age group? Are you improving? Is the trajectory moving forward? Because football is not 1 year. It's everlasting. It continues to go. How you did last year can impact how well you do this year. So sure. I don't think you can look at it in a complete vacuum and just say, yeah, if you come second on 99 points and the team that won the league had 100 points, you were rubbish and you fouled and the manager deserves to be sacked. It's too far. It's absolutely too far. Have you fouled in some respect? Yes, but it's about having a nuanced, grown-up, mature conversation about it, as opposed to just everybody's. Look, me and Lee have had this conversation. His view is if Luton don't win the Premier League this year, they failed. Even if they come 10th, they're failures.
Yeah, but Lee goes the complete other end. Like, because I remember having this debate with Lee about Brighton, right? And I said, what a well-run club Brighton are. And he was like, yeah, but they don't win anything. And I was like, well, hang on. 4 years ago, they were in the Championship and they didn't even have a stadium. Like, their stadium was a pokey. I don't know if you've ever been.
It was like a running track. Yeah,
the Withdean, right? I remember going there. So, again, context is a word that needs to be applied. And this is where Lee and I always differ. Because for me, yes, you could say massive clubs. Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea, City. These clubs can't go too many years in a row without winning something. I'm not saying they all have to win the league, but they have to, at some point, you've got to be winning the League Cup, the FA Cup, Europa League, Champions League, right? But what you can't do is then go, oh, Brighton aren't a well-run club because they don't win anything. Well, Brighton are well-run within context, within what they were to what they are now.
And where they are and where they're going and the direction that they're moving in. And you're absolutely right. Context is key. It's where are you in your journey? What I think Lee's doing, and Lee isn't the only one, is you're looking through your Arsenal spectrum, your Arsenal vacuum, and you're applying that logic to every single club. But at the end of the day, like Brighton are a great example. Their owner's rich. He's worth 1.3 billion US dollars. So that's probably about 800, 900 million pounds. Yeah. He's rich. There's no doubt about it. Bad. But Arsenal's owners are worth like 13 billion as an example. Aston Villa's owners, 12 billion as an example. When you start going down though, and you look at teams that have got similar value of club and size owners, Bournemouth, they knock them out of the park. Their owner's richer than them. I mean, Brentford, when you look at what Brentford are doing, Brentford's owner is worth 280 million pounds. So Brentford's owner has less money than most of the big clubs spend on transfers every summer. So it is physically impossible for them to ever be able to pay the salary or the transfer fees of a Man United or a Man City or a Chelsea for them to ever be able to compete. So again, I get what Lee talks about when it comes to the big teams, the top 6 teams, the top 7 teams now, including Newcastle. He's bang on. He's bang on. When we don't win leagues, generally speaking, we're either failed that season or we're in the process of failing. But you can't apply that to Bournemouth or Brentford. It's crazy.
Lee is right. When he applies it to Arsenal, who are one of the biggest clubs in the country, right? They're one of the biggest free football clubs in this country and one of the biggest clubs in Europe. They are. I hate saying it as a Spurs fans. They are. So I get it. When he comes at it from that point of view, I get it. But then when we apply it to everybody else, you can't have it that 19 teams have failed, right? So if Man City win the league this year on 100 points and Arsenal finish on 99 points, I would say that's a bloody good season for Arsenal, right? Because to be pipped by this Man City team isn't bad. Where I would say they failed, both of them, but we're not talking about Pep for now. Where I would say Arsenal have failed is if Arsenal finished second, but Aston Villa won the league. I'm not saying it will happen, but if Aston Villa won the league.
Like the Leicester season. Of course. And it's
Context
is very key. Looking at the value of owners as well. By the way, Man United only got the 11th richest owners in the league, which is actually crazy when you think about it. 11 other teams have wealthier owners than Man United. The only teams that have got poorer, quote unquote, poorer owners than us, contextually speaking, are Everton, Bournemouth, Brighton, Forest, Sheffield United. When you look at these teams, you look at Sheffield United, like, and Forest, like, their owners, 600 million, 200 million. They don't even, on the website I'm on, they don't even have a valuation for Luton's owners. It's just impossible to turn around and say they should compete. And then you've got to look at the size of the fan base, because even though you've got owners that might want to pump their money in, you're only allowed to spend what your club turns over. So if you're a club that only has like 20,000 fans and maybe globally only has 50,000, you can never generate 700, 800 million pound of income, because there isn't enough people for that. So you have to contextualize. You absolutely have to do that. However, it's you can't paint, what's the old expression? You can't paint everybody with the same brush. It's as simple as that.
So let me ask you a question. So Tottenham Hotspur this season, what's a good season? What's acceptable? And what's failure?
So for me, a good season is football. The football gets better, which I think we've already seen. So that has to be there. Top 4 finish, because that top 4 finish, if the club's being run right, like Daniel Levy says, should generate additional income, which enables you to invest to make the team better. So top 4, improve football. Year 1, I think, is a good season. If you were to add an FA Cup to that, I think it would be an excellent first year with the new manager in this new direction. I think a good season would be a top 6 finish. A trophy, no trophy would be good. Progression, but the football has improved. A failure would be, from this point, to miss out on Champions League,
Europe altogether.
And or if you come 6th or 5th, but the football towered off massively towards the end, and you weren't, then I'd look at it and go, it's been a bit of a failed first season with what we've initially seen. So that's how I'd kind of categorize it, if that makes sense.
And spot on. Do you know what I said this since the beginning of the season? What you've got to, first and foremost, the minimum, the absolute lowest of the low, is you can't finish lower than we did last season, because then that is, by the pure definition of it, that's failure. That we've not moved the club forward. For me, I've said all season, if we get European football, very good year. If we get Champions League football, it's been an exceptional first season, right, for Postecoglou. Anything else is a bonus. But other people will look and go, well, that's a failure. And I don't see it like that. I don't see that Tottenham are ready to compete with the bigger boys yet. I don't.
No,
I genuinely don't.
They're not. And as I say, there is a process to this, and people hate the words, because I think the way it was used with Arsenal, and it's become a poisonous
project.
It's become a poisonous way to speak in football. Football fans hate it, but it's always been the case. You listen to Sir Alex. It was very, very emotive listening to Sir Alex talk at Sir Bobby Charlton's funeral on Monday, and he just said he was backing me. He was backing my youth project. Fergie was, go back and listen to Fergie speak back then. Fergie was using that language in the 80s. It isn't a new thing. This has always been there. And clubs have projects. Man City, right? This is the irony. What project are they in? City are at the production end of the project that started in 2009, you nincompoops. When they first started, they had a project, they had a plan to get to where they are now. You're just talking about, the only reason they don't mention it now is because they're there, they've achieved, they're delivering as an example. But they're still a project. They've planned the next manager. It might change by the time he leaves, but they're planning the next manager. They're always planning the next moves. They talk about this all the time, City fans, how well organized they are. It's because they're a great project. They're a great business. They're a great sports club. They have planning. They move on, whether you want to call it phases or not. I don't really give a damn. But they are what they did,
Terry. They had an idea. Yeah. So they had a plan, put it into they had a conception, right? Put it into process, delivered on it, and have maintained it. And now everything they do just runs perfectly. Other clubs are all at different stages. Spurs are not at that. Spurs are at that stage where we're trying to implement those plans now. I'm not saying Cities. We're trying to implement those plans with the academy, with the scouts. But these things, I think too many football fans think loads of money equals instant success. And I think back in the day, it did. Back in the day, if we want to go as far back, Terry, if we want to go as far back as Blackburn Rovers, right? When they won the league, that's what they were doing. They were buying the best players, right? But obviously the money was very different to what it is today. Then Chelsea really kicked it off with instantaneous money. Then City, now everyone's got it. Everyone's got billion. I say, you know what I mean? Most of the Premier League chairmen
Yeah.
are billionaire owners now. And it is now all about who can run their club the best. And if you look at United, and that's what I was going to hopefully lead this on to, asking you about your club. If you look at United and you look at City and you look at the money spent in the last decade, United, I believe, have spent more than City, but City are out here winning trebles and titles. Man United are out here still no nearer to winning titles than they were since Ferguson left. So I was going to ask you off the back of that, like, what is going on with your club ownership and all this Richard Arnold stuff and the new owners, and what's going on with all that?
Great question, and brilliant segue from what we're talking about, because you're absolutely right. Spending money does not guarantee success. When a lot of people challenge me for not liking the Glazers, it's the atypical, bog standard, basic bitch analysis of they spend money, therefore good. And you always know that rivals don't really believe that, because they sing songs in stadiums now that the Glazers are staying, and they celebrate this. So that tells you, again, that's why I say to Man United fans, don't be triggered by it. Look at people's actual behavior as opposed to the nonsense banter they give you. But we waste money because we have no plan. The biggest difference between Man City and Man United, yes, their owners have invested actual capital. Yes, their owners, look, there's question marks over City. And we're actually going to move on to them a little bit later with the charges. And we've seen more come out about Chelsea today, which we've got content coming out on later. So if it ever turns out, and I always say this, that City have got the money that they've spent through ill-gotten gains and cheating the system, I'll change my opinion on them as a club. However, until that's proven, my stance remains as thus. They're an impeccably well-run football club. So that is why they achieve more than us. Not because of what they spend per se, that's a part of it, but it's how well they're run and the planning of which City put into place. We don't have a plan. To go from Fergie to Moyes, to LVG to Jose to Oli, to essentially Ten Hag with the interim of Ragnick, shows you no clear direction or plan. There's no one style of football that the club agrees on. The fact that we have a recruitment team, coaches, and a board that all pull in very different directions and see the club in a different light. That's been the problem for the past decade, is there's no plan. That makes the culture bad. And I'll use a business saying, because it works in this context, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it will always do that. So with the new ownership structure that's coming in, look, I remain skeptical, not so much of the new owners. I know they haven't been the most successful with Nice. I understand that. I know they haven't had the most success elsewhere, but listen, people were saying that, oh, the Qataris will do a great job. The only example we have of that is Paris Saint-Germain, which domestically it's great, but in Europe we all laugh at them. So, and I know on paper it was going to be different people owning it, but there was a lot of speculation it was going to be the same people at grassroots level in Qatar. But anyway, so for me, you got back.
Oh, don't. You have no idea.
I suffer the same.
No idea. I'm doing something similar to you, right, in terms of the health kick and that, and I'm just working out every day, and I'm just in bits. If I'm honest, I'm too old for this, Terry. I'm trying to pretend I'm 21 again with some of the things I'm doing. Struggling, mate.
I hear you, mate. And so with that, with the new ownership structure coming in, I like the idea of Jean-Claude Blanc. I like the idea, and it's just come out now from a journalist called Santi, who's very credible, based in France, that Jean-Claude Blanc will become the new CEO. He'll replace Richard Arnold. Right. Man United want Paul Mitchell, and Paul Mitchell wants to join Man United. He's someone that's very well thought of.
He's good.
And the club's also holding discussions with Michael Edwards. So there could be a trifecta of Michael Edwards, Paul Mitchell, and Jean-Claude Blanc coming into the club with, of course, Sir Jim Radcliffe kind of overseeing it. And what my hope is that Sir Jim does have full autonomy over the sporting element. Because if the Glazers don't have really any say or control and they're allowing him to run it and operate it, there is a chance that we could become successful. However, there are still lots of questions that we have to ask about this new ownership. We know he's buying it with is the 1.3 billion of investment debt. Who has to pay that debt back? Could the club ever have to pay that debt back? It's a big question. If that debt's being paid by Ineos and it's never going to touch Man United's books, I don't care about it because it won't ever impact us. We then need to be told what's happening with stadiums, what's happening with training facilities, what is happening with the actual 700-800 million pound of debt that the club sits in. Is there a plan to break it down? And we need to know, is there a plan for him to own more than 25% in the short, medium, and long-term future? So there's lots of questions to answer. And we have to get all those things right and all those things motoring in the right direction to progress as a football club. I think all of it is important because as much as people say the players don't have an excuse, I disagree. If you've ever worked in a business or been part of a sports team where there's problems, it impacts performance in every single way, shape, and form. So that is what the club needs to do. I'm excited about the change because at the end of the day, yes, I wanted someone to come in and buy the Glazers outright, but they said no to it. We're not doing it. So the Qataris walked away, which I'm disappointed in. So Jim has stayed in and said, okay, well, I'll buy 25% and slowly buy you out. I still think in the long term, that's going to be better for Man United than the Glazers staying just by themselves. And I know there's a lot of fans that say, we only want a full sale. But these are the same fans saying this that I see that keep buying their season tickets, keep buying the football kits, keep going to games. And I think to myself, well, you're not doing anything to force them out. So this is the best of the situation that we can find ourselves in. But what he's doing right, in my opinion, and this is in theory, because we have to see it in practice, is he's getting rid of the key decision makers who have led to 10 years of decline. And for me, that's a key fundamental part to us improving. Because if he just keeps, if Sir Jim comes in and keeps all the same people in running the club and making the decisions that have been here for 10 years, barring Ed Woodward, I don't understand how anybody thinks we can improve.
Look, I think one of the key things you said there is it's the same thing that we have with Levy is fans can talk a lot about getting owners out. But let's be honest, right? Half these owners, they don't care about sentiment, Terry. These owners don't care. They will say, yes, we will sell, or no, we won't. So if the best you can do is to get Jim Ratcliffe in, so Jim Ratcliffe in at 25%, and then slowly but surely maybe chip away with a couple of percent here and a couple of percent there until he gets the majority ownership, then that's win-win, right? That's the relative win that you can't control. Let's be fair. None of us can control anything we talk about in reality. So I think that's a win-win for Man United. But I think you're right. Culture, I think a phrase you just coined there, and I can't remember what it was. It was culture trumps.
Culture eats strategy.
Culture eats strategy. The culture is so important because when you look at the biggest and best clubs in world football, when they're at their best and when they're winning and everything, you look how harmonious everything is from top to bottom. From top to bottom. You look at the clubs that win sporadically, the clubs that are in and out. Chelsea, great example, right? They're having to create a brand new culture now because their culture for years and years and years was short-term culture. What am I saying? I was trying to say short-termism culture, where it was a culture of win, win, win because we buy the best players. But then when everyone else caught up with them and could also buy the best players, that culture doesn't really mean anything.
Well, if you look at the situation with Chelsea, and I've got content coming out in it later. When you read this new article that's out, you sit there and go, okay, the Chelsea and Roman Empire, which was just buy, sack, it gets praised. But if a lot of this has been built upon offshore payments and illegal from the point of view of against the laws of the game, not illegal from a criminality point of view, then the strategy wasn't a real one, was it? If you have to cheat, and let's just say this turns out to be true, if it turns out they've cheated, then it's a case of that approach to how you did things wouldn't have worked if you hadn't have, cut those corners as an example. And it becomes, and Chelsea's the anomaly in England. Chelsea is the anomaly, is the anomaly in England of a team who spent big on players and just sacked managers and carried on being fairly successful. But that started to dwindle as soon as FFP came in. And it dwindled because at the same time as FFP coming in, all the new TV deal money came in, which went from hundreds of millions to billions, and everybody started to have money. Then new owners came in, and you have to have a long-term strategy, a long-term style of play. You have to not stick by managers per se. You have to stick with the right managers for a period of time. Player power cannot be part of your football club. It won't work. And I think that's why I think with Todd Boehly and what they're doing, they made mistakes, but they're moving in the right direction, in my opinion. When you think about how these other clubs are run, and Brighton are a great example. Pound for pound, in my opinion, they're the best run club in England. Up there with Man City.
Brilliantly run. And I'll tell you what, and Brentford.
Brentford as well.
And Brentford, a superbly run football club.
Impeccably run. Impeccably run. And from my point of view, I just want my club to be run well. And the irony in all of this is everyone views sport from a different spectrum. Some look at it as entertainment, and I do. But sport has always been a big part of my life, whether it's been competing in it or watching it. And I take a lot of influence in my life from sport, whether it be a particular athlete or a manager, how they conduct themselves, how they worked hard, how they focused. I've taken that into my own life and gone, okay, well, I'm going to take some of these best practices. Again, another argument me and Lee have on Straight Facts is when he gets annoyed when, well, how can you compare Arteta to Pep? I'm like, well, wouldn't you rather Arteta copies the or imitates or takes influence from the greats rather than trying to invent his own ways? I don't do anything innovative. I just go, right, well, this great businessman did this, so I'm going to start doing that. And this great business person did X and it really worked for them, so I'm going to do my version of that. That's the way you should operate. And that's how I always view sport. And I look at Man United and the clubs, every club makes mistakes. Every club does things wrong. But I look at what we went through when the Munich air disaster happened and how we grew through that and what the club became. I look at how we lost our way through the mid to late 70s and the 80s and what Sir Alex Ferguson did when he came in to rejuvenate the club and what he did to get us back to the very top and the stories and the learns from it. And Man United inspired me, not just because of winning. When I started supporting Man United, it was 2 or 3 years before the Premier League existed. We hadn't won a league title in the best part of 20 plus years. I didn't support Man United for what they were doing on the pitch. I supported them for what they were as a football club and what they were trying to get back to. And I fell in love with the romance of it, but also the way you're meant to carry yourself. The way we went to games, we're in suits and we were proper. And we've lost our way. And I'm not upset that we don't win trophies anymore per se. I'm upset that we're not run like Manchester United should be. I'm upset that we have become a shadow of ourselves, what we were. And it's like seeing, you might have had a mate in your life or a friend or a relative who, good job, well educated, got their life together, and then maybe they get a few bad things that happen, they lose their way, and you see them 3 years, 5 years later, and they're a shadow of themselves, and it's heartbreaking to see him in that state. That's how I view my football club. And it's look, I want to win things, of course I do. But if we start to be run well, if we start to behave properly, if we start to conduct ourselves in the manner which is becoming to the history of this football club, I don't have a God-given right to win. I'll still be happy with that as long as we are run right. I believe if we run right with our money, we will win anyway. But I just want to be run correctly. I really do.
I agree with you completely. And culture is so important. And culture, planning, strategy, all of these things are really, really important. And that's what City have implemented. And if we go back through the Premier League eras, right? If we look at the Premier League era, if we look at these decades, there is no coincidence other than Chelsea being the anomaly, as you said. There's no coincidence that Man United dominated, right? Because they had the best youth team. They had the best scouts behind the best players that fit Ferguson, and they had the best manager and all these kind of stuff, and the culture was great. Then it moved to Arsenal and Man U. I'm not just saying these people were out by themselves. Then you had Arsenal with Wenger coming in and implementing his strategy, his culture, his no one can eat mayonnaise and all that kind of stuff that at the time was groundbreaking, right? At the time, it was like, sorry, what? We're not allowed to have ketchup on us. What? We're not allowed a sausage sandwich in the morning before a match, all this kind of stuff. So you had Man United, then you had Wenger, then you had, Liverpool with Klopp, Man City with Pep Guardiola. And the anomaly in all of that was Chelsea, who weren't doing it via a culture. Chelsea were doing it via, look how good Chelsea's squad was. Yeah. Chelsea could have some 3 or 4 bad games. They'd sack a manager, and then Scaloni, Ancelotti, whoever comes in is going, oh, hang on, I've got Drogba, Robben, Lampard, Deco.
The only way it could work again now, what Chelsea did, is if they could build a squad as good as that, as strong as that, and keep it together, then you could rotate managers. But it's hard to do that now. And by the way, some people said I was a glory hunter. The first 2 seasons I remember watching Man United play, we came 13th and 6th. And they, by the way, were like the 4th and 5th season that the manager was at the club. So I wasn't supporting a team that was winning, and I wasn't supporting a team that looked at it. But it was funny, really, because of the school I went to in East London. David Beckham was from there. And that's also why the Man United bug caught on, because we got this kid that went to our school. He was 10 years older than us, but he was going to play for Man United, and he was being tipped to be this absolute superstar. That's kind of the reason as well. So maybe a little bit of inside track there. Some super chats here. First one says, culture change all starts with leadership. Man United may too many different ideas as to how they want the club to be run. Need one idea and people to support, not 10 people with 10 ideas. Do you know what happens sometimes in life? Like we love it where we want life to be. We like living in a world where it's very democratic, but sometimes you need to have a little bit of, I think the word is like be autocratic when it comes to business at times, where somebody says, no, this is what we're doing. And then you employ people that share that view and share that vision. So you all work as one. You can't have 4 or 5 different people at the top with all completely different views fighting against each other all the time, because you end up where Man United are. FYR, yeah, Luton are fan owned. That's absolutely right. Tottenham Cup top 4 is what you're saying there. Yeah, Luton being fan owned as well. Again, how could they ever compete with City or United? It's crazy. I just saw a crazy stat. Sancho was the last Man United forward to score at Old Trafford in the Premier League. He scored in the final game of the season versus Fulham. What? They can't be. Forward. No, you're right. Yeah, none of our strikers scored at home in the Premier League this year. You're right. That is a crazy stat. That's how bad we've been this season. On Sava's point, if Pep wins the league, Arteta hasn't fouled. But if Klopp or anyone else, then Arteta has fouled, in my opinion.
I think Liverpool and Arsenal are very, very close at the moment. I don't think it's failure to finish behind Klopp. Anyone else, yes. I hear him. Yeah, I hear him. But
I agree. Yeah, it depends how far behind Klopp. If he finishes 25 points behind, yeah, of course. We've got to throw that context in, because somebody will say, well, what if he comes 12th? Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you before. I've got another super chat here. I want to ask you a question. It says, according to Lee's logic, everyone in the world ever was fouled at being the fastest person of all time, other than Usain Bolt. He doesn't actually believe what he says. Do you know what it is, Charlie? I don't think it's not that he doesn't believe what he says, and I'm not speaking ill of Lee here. I think he's right, but I think he looks at it through his Arsenal lens. I think he looks at it from how he feels about Arsenal, and he applies that logic to everything. Because Lee Gunner's not a failure when it comes to YouTube, but he is if you compare him to KSI. But if we say KSI's success and everybody else's failure, do I feel like a failure because I don't have what KSI has? No, I don't. No. Do I feel like a failure because Mark Goldbridge has more followers than me? No. So it's you can't apply that logic to everything, because I know it ain't true, because I don't feel like you may think I'm a failure, but being a failure is more so how you feel about yourself as well. But I want to ask you a question, actually. We mentioned Man City already. It's been announced today that Manchester City have generated a record amount of income for a Premier League team in a single year of £712 million, more than Man United have. It's right up there with the Barca's and the Real Madrids. Of course, every Twitter account that shared this, all the comments are 115 charges, cheats, there's no way, fake sponsors. What's your view on all of this? In your heart of hearts, I want to ask you a very direct question. And this is an opinion. We're not stating facts for anybody that's clipping this up. Do you think the income of Man City is 100% genuine, or do you think there could be a little bit of creative accounting going on here?
I'll be pretty honest, I just don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think the problem is when you get these types of stories, and obviously we've seen it for, nearly a year now, or whatever it is, the 115 charges. Yeah. Cool. If there's 115 charges, charge them. Do you know what I mean? It's like they've been charged. Okay, but you know what I mean?
For the hearing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. If you've been charged, right, get to the hearing and then make your decision. I've got again, only a feeling. I don't know. And this is from what I've been reading about it. And the problem with reading things about it is it depends whose angle you look at when you're reading it.
Yes.
My understanding is that what City have done isn't so much that they've done things wrong. It's that they've not declared information in a quick enough and timely manner. But I don't know. Listen, I don't pertain to be an expert in that side of football. I don't pertain to want to have that understanding. But I think what they need to do so that all this chat goes away is if they have committed crimes, get to the hearing, then make the decision. I think we all kind of know that what's going to happen from this, don't we? If we're brutally honest, Terry, do you really see Man City? I first of all don't think probably what they've done is as bad as what anyone said. I don't think, because I think if it was, the hammer would be down by now. What I think is they're probably going to get a slap on the wrist with what will be a colossal fine. But colossal fines to Man City are like me and you being charged a fine. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think. Listen, we can all sit here and go, they've cheated, they've done this. Do any of us know the ins and outs of it?
Yeah, my view is this. I think that they did a treble last year. So am I shocked that their turnover has gone up by £99 million? No. That makes winning a treble, winning the Champions League is worth a lot of money. Doing a 3-peat, winning the FA Cup. There's probably bonuses that they have with certain sponsors for winning certain trophies. So growing by £100 million, circa 100 million in a year, with what they achieved and what they won, makes complete and utter sense. There's nothing about that I look at and go, that's dodgy. Do you get where I'm coming? I don't think that's dodgy in any capacity. Do I think Man City bent rules in the earlier stages of FFP? Yes, I do. And the reason that I think they probably did is we're now seeing a lot of evidence that Chelsea did. Do I think do I think Man City did it? Absolutely. The leaked emails that have come out, yes, they were leaked, and you can say that a hacker did it. It wasn't really a hacker; it was an ex-employee that used their employee login. It was still working. So when you actually break that kind of down, it's different. So I do believe that there is an element of that in there, but I don't believe they're going to be punished. I don't believe it will be proven. Equally, I'm not sure that more clubs aren't doing what they do anyway. I'm not sure whether this isn't. I don't necessarily think this is Man City specific, because I think if regulators came in and started going through the books of Man United, of Chelsea, of Arsenal, of Tottenham, you could probably find multiple clubs that do things where, okay, we've got to pay an agent £5 million for this player. Oh, but look, we're really close to FFP. I'll tell you what we'll do, because all of our owners must have multiple businesses that are offshore, Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands. Do you know what we'll do? I'll make a personal £3 million, £4 million, £5 million payment to an agent off the side, so it doesn't impact Man United's books or Tottenham's books. I have a feeling that a lot of football clubs have done that. And that's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily... Do you get where I'm coming from? So it's one of those things that if they're all doing it, then I've got no issue with City doing it, because it's I've always said this about athletics. With the amount of people they say are actually taking the steroids, just let them all take them. Just make it legal. Because at least then, it's more of a level playing field, right? So I think there's not in fighting sports, because you actually hit each other, but if all weightlifters just have a section for the steroid weightlifting and non-steroid weightlifting and whatever else. But they'll never do that. It's probably dangerous, but you get my point, right? I just think to myself, sometimes it's easier to go, right, just let it happen, then we'll regulate it or something. But I kind of look at it, I get fans being outraged. But look, City are winning so much, City are growing. I think what they're generating now is legit. I think whatever they're doing now in 2023, I think is legit income. What foundation it's built upon, I'm not too sure. And the reason that, what I will say is this, I don't believe any of it. This is just pie in the sky opinion. Okay. Yeah. I will openly admit that. Everything that's now coming out about Chelsea, they were being accused of from the day Roman took over. And now that new owners have come in and they've realized all of this, and for one reason or another, they are G'ing themselves up. Everything is now being revealed. Offshore payments, paying, read the Guardian article today. It's very detailed. I think maybe in 10 years, 20 years time, if Sheikh Mansour sells Man City, then some of this stuff might start to actually come out. Does that make sense? Terry, you're speaking pure conjecture. Be careful. It's an opinion. You're allowed to give opinions. It's an opinion thing. I'm just saying what I've read, what I feel is that I think their money now is legit, but I think lots of football clubs will cook their books in one way, shape or form. How do I know this? Man United reported themselves recently. Chelsea have reported themselves. Do I think they're the only ones in England? No. Do I think there's lots of this going on? Because it's the finances are unregulated, barring what you submit. So this isn't like banking where a governing body can turn up on your door, knock on the door and go through your books. And if they could, you'd see, I guarantee if from next season, everybody's books were going to be reviewed, you suddenly see a lot of clubs drop anywhere between 80 to 100 million, 200 million in revenues. Transfer fees would be less. I think all of that would change if they were being regulated. But I get why rivals are annoyed, but they do need to get to that hearing sooner rather than later and come to a conclusion on this Man City situation, because it's I don't feel sorry for Man City per se, but it's always hanging around. And it's like, because I look at the way they run their club and I see it as, wow, I think there should be a blueprint for people. But at the same time, you don't want to promote it as a blueprint if for 5, 6, 7, 8 years they built their foundation through ill-gotten gains and actually they've cheated to get there, because then it's a fallacy that it was well run, if that makes, because they wouldn't have been able to conduct themselves in that way. So I think they just need to get to this resolution quickly. They really do.
Let me ask you this. If Man City weren't winning trebles, would anyone care?
Nah, nobody would give a damn.
If this was, I'll use my club. If this was Tottenham Hotspur, who finished between 4th and 7th every year, right? And all these would anyone care?
No. I totally agree.
There's half your answer as to why people are so pissed off. It's because they're winning.
I totally agree. And someone here says, Terry, you're so bitter towards City, but I'm not being bitter towards City. If you've seen so many shows I've done over the past, I've said this to a lot of City fans. It's like, don't take one opinion someone says about a particular subject and go, right, that must be how he thinks about our club as an entirety. I'm one of the very few content creators who hasn't called out your spending ever, in the sense of, I don't just think you're successful because you spend money. I don't just think you're successful because you've got owners from the Middle East. I think you're very well run. You've brought in the right infrastructure, the right culture. I think the way you invest into the local community of Manchester, the way you've done this international multi-club system, I think it's all brilliant. What I am saying, though, I've seen the emails, and I believe the emails are real. And the emails, I believe, are genuinely from your server. And the way they read, and so far, City have given no explanation for them because their lawyers have said they don't have to. So if you don't give an explanation, explain to us what they are, and I'm reading real emails that read as you're going to get the Sheikh and other people in Abu Dhabi to pay some of the sponsorship money because the sponsors that are sponsoring you don't have the money to pay you, I can't not go with it. They are genuine emails from your server that have come from an ex-employee of your club. So that isn't about hating on you. What I am saying, though, is that if you guys get found innocent in a court of law, then I'm going to say you're innocent. Until you're proven not to be, I'm going to say you're innocent. So it's not about hating on Manchester City. I've praised you many, many times for how you're run. I've praised many things that you've done. But I can't ignore these emails that I've seen. I just can't. The same way as the world of football, whether it's about your club and its finances or something a player's done. When Anthony was recently questioned for over allegations of things he'd done wrong, did we bury our head in the sands and say, we're going to ignore that? We said no. When it turned out the club maybe have sent a doctor to a situation where he reportedly hurt her, I said it was an absolute disgrace. If that's true, why is that any different to this situation from a moral standpoint? I'm not taking sides here. It's not because I'm a Man United fan. I'd say the same. If Man United did this, I'd be even more venomous. How dare you do this to my club? So as I say, it's not about attacking Man. I said it about the VAR stuff. It's not about attacking Man City and trying to make them look bad. We know them emails are real. 100%. They're 100% real. That's verified. But there is no categoric proof of exactly what they mean. And City have failed to give context. So, yeah, I have a belief that some of your money was cooked in the early days. But listen to what I also said. I think a lot of our clubs do it. I don't think it's specific to City. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's just how it feels to me. But yeah, Big Steve's going to come for you, Terry. No, he's not going to come for me. Like, Big Steve knows my stance on this. At the end of the day, if they get found innocent, I'll say they're innocent. And I'll say, wow. And then you won't hear me mention it ever again. But there we go. Again, but you are right. If they weren't winning anything, rivals wouldn't say anything. And again, if they sign a player for 100 million, you don't hear me moan about how much they're spending. I've never said they're ruining football. I've never said them or Chelsea are doping the game and they've killed it. Those words have never left my mouth. However, I think when I see an article that shows genuine emails from them that look dodgy, I'm going to question it as a football fan. Why would I not?
I think the thing is, the reason why I've never worried about how much they're spending is everyone's spending money. Like, everyone is spending money. It is getting ridiculous how much people are spending. And as I said at the beginning of the show, unfortunately, Man City are spending their money better than other teams are spending theirs. So I think if you actually listen, I don't have all the facts and figures in front of me, but I reckon if you look at the big six clubs in England and compared to what they've spent in the last decade, I don't think it's going to be miles off each other. I would hazard a guess to say that Man City aren't even in the top two of money spent on players in the last decade. Would that be right? I reckon Chelsea and Man United have spent more.
Chelsea are definitely above them with what they've spent in the last year. I can work that out now. All Premier League. I can get that stat up. All Premier League transfers. There's a website that does it all and adds it up, and you can time. You can times drop it. The last 10 years, did you say? Let's have a little look. They're going to be in the top 3 in my personal opinion.
I reckon they're going to be 3rd in that list. Just
in money spent. We'll wait for it to load up now. But yeah, I hear you on that.
And that's the thing. The thing is, Chelsea, with the amount of money they spent, could be sitting right now. And I don't mean above them in the league for 1 second. I mean this sustained success, because that's the word that's not used a lot, Terry. It's sustained success. You know, when I was talking to someone earlier, and they were like, "Oh, we're only 1 point behind Man City," and it's like, yeah, but that's now. I'm talking about in the last 6-7 years, City have sustained success. Right now, to create that with the amount, if it was just about money, Chelsea would be there, Man United would be there, Spurs. I reckon Spurs must have spent a lot of money in the last decade.
I saw something about this, but that's what I'm trying to find it again now, and I can't actually find it right now. That does where you could break it down. But Spurs, I did look at a website. I'm trying to find it again now. In the last, in the Premier League era, spent like 1.8, 1.9 billion pound on transfers.
Just badly.
Yeah, of course.
Just badly.
It's crazy. All Premier League transfers since, okay, I'm going to put in since 1992 just to see if that helps, because I can't remember what I searched to find it, if that makes sense. Oh, here we go. Right, here we go. I found it. So Premier League transfers, hopefully it lets me change it. This is since 1992, but hopefully it's got the filter on it so I can check. Come on, you son of a gun. No, it's just the whole way. So no, that's not the website. It's annoying. It's annoying trying to find it. But yeah, I'll try and find it a little bit later. But this here says verified by who? Well, verified from the employee. So the employee told the journalist so the employee, I heard the journalist who first broke this story speak about it. He said the employee logged into the City server and printed them off. So that's verified in that way, if that makes sense. Why does Maddison do better than Szoboszlai? Szoboszlai is a better passer, scorer, defender, better looking. He's better than that relegation merchant. Interesting. I don't know what to say to that. Gerard, but thank you. I do appreciate it. I'm still trying to find this. Transfers, right? Clubs, managers, players, overview, transfer overview. I don't know. It's hard to find. It's hard to break it down. I can't find it. I'll have to try and find it another time.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm live.
I don't know the exact numbers. I just think that there's going to be not that much between them. And I think what a lot of people get really frustrated about is that Man City have just done it well, and other clubs haven't. Man U and Chelsea in the last decade, yeah, they've had success. Yeah, they've won some things, but on a consistent, sustainable basis, haven't run the club well. Man City have. And I think that's what people hate, because you know what? Man City, if they don't win the league this year, I think they will. If Man City don't win the league this year, you can bet your bottom dollar, Terry, they'll be back up there next year, right? They're not going away. These other teams do this yo-yo stuff. So you look at Arsenal. Arsenal went from 5th, then they're 2nd. Now, there's nothing to say they're going to finish 2nd again. I'm not saying they won't, but they might not. City are just constantly there, 1st or 2nd, 1st or 2nd, 1st or 2nd.
Okay, I've got it for you. I found it. So in the last 10 years, so from 2013-14 season until now, Chelsea have spent this is in euros on this website, but it's 2.4 billion euros. City are 2nd with 1.92 billion.
Sorry, the last decade?
The decade, yeah. You said decade,
the last
right?
decade. Sorry, start that again, mate. Sorry, can't start that again.
Chelsea have spent the most, 2.45 billion. City are number 2, and they've spent 1.92 billion.
Right.
Man United number 3, 1.8 billion. And this is where then you've got Arsenal, 1.5 billion. Liverpool, 1.4 billion. Tottenham, 1.4 billion. And then you drop, then it's West Ham who are on 900 million, and it starts falling. So top
those big six, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my point is there. If you look, what was the gap between? So it was Man City in 2nd and Man United in 3rd. Is that right?
Yeah, 100 million.
Right. Okay, there's
million.
my answer.
Exactly.
So for £100 million, now let's break that down into layman's terms. For one Lukaku, for one Paul Pogba, right? For one Jack Grealish, right? The difference between those two clubs spending is one player. If we look at that, the difference in those two trophy cabinets and success for the last decade is frightening. But that goes to show that you can spend all the money in the world. If you don't have the culture, the plan, the strategy that we've been talking about, it doesn't mean anything.
What also happens as well when you've got good culture, when you've got good planning, when you win, is you can also create more of an income through sales. Now, net spend isn't something I believe in, because the football financials don't work in that basic sort of way. But if you're able to sell 400 million worth of players, 600 million, because they're winning trophies, then it gives you more money to then reinvest. As an example, it grows your income. And that's another reason why City's income continues to grow, because they're selling people for a large amount of money. Just for the whole Premier League era, just to put this into perspective as well. So Chelsea have spent 3.6 billion in the whole era. City 2.8 billion, Man United 2.5 billion, Liverpool 2.3 billion, Spurs are fifth on 2 billion spent. 2 billion. Arsenal was sixth on 1.9 billion. And then you got Newcastle 1.4, West Ham 1.2, Villa 1.2. So this is what Spurs fans say, but we just can't compete. Man United spent 500 million more than you, but that's over 30 years. It
goes down to everything we've been saying. You can spend money, you have to spend it well. That's not football, that's life. That's absolutely life.
And if you break it down per Premier League trophy, like United have listen, we're in the mud, but we've won 13 Premier League trophies for that. Like City have won 6 or 7. When you start breaking it, Liverpool 1, Arsenal 3, Spurs, like pound for pound, the top 6. Spurs have spent the most amount of money per Premier League trophy. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, listen, I've always
euros,
said that.
by the way, as well. But that's euros, by the way, people. So that isn't pounds. That's euros on this website. So I'm only going by what Transfer Market is saying here. It's not my words. I wanted to ask you about the title race, actually. Arsenal and City names are there. Tottenham, Liverpool's names there.
Yeah.
As your mind, as we're sort of getting now to like towards a third of the way through the season, how are you starting to feel about the title race now? Do you think the top 3 as it sits now, that's them? And do you think that Liverpool and Arsenal will continue to push City all the way?
To answer the first part of the question, nothing's... I came on before the season started, and I said to every YouTuber that City will win it, Liverpool second, Arsenal third. I've seen nothing this season in 12 games that's changed my opinion on any of that, if I'm honest. I'm not saying I'll be right, but for my opinion right now, I've not seen anything that changes my opinion on the top 3. How close will Arsenal and Liverpool be to Man City is who knows. I think Man City will end up winning it by 8 points or so. I just think they're too good the flip side of the year. That's for me. But I think Liverpool and Arsenal are very, very close. I think Arsenal are a lot better organised at the back. And with the holding midfield situation, I think Liverpool are much better in the forward areas in terms of goal power and options. Both of them have only lost 1 game, so they're doing very, very well. But I do think those 3 will pull away. If I'm honest, I do think those 3 will pull away. I think then you've got that little group in behind with Spurs, Villa, Newcastle, if Man United, if Chelsea start getting into there. And I think that little group will have to fight it out for the last Champions League spot and all of Europe. So nothing. I haven't seen anything that will make me that's made me change my mind. Nothing that's made me change my mind.
Interesting. Look, like nothing's changed my mind about my top 3: Liverpool, Arsenal, City. City are still my favourites to win it. I still feel that it's weird, really, because I got called out by a lot of Liverpool fans on a video this week saying, well, you always talk about Liverpool nearly conceding, but we've only conceded the same amount of goals as Arsenal. And I'm like, yes, because you've got an absolute demon in goal of Maddison, who, in my opinion, continually saves you in those moments. I just think that the amount of opportunities teams kind of create against you is why I think you'd come third. I've still got Arsenal coming second, but I don't think they're going to be far behind Man City. And I think there's still, listen, if Liverpool go out and buy a world-class DM, for instance, in the January window, my mind might change. If Arsenal go and get Ivan Toney and he comes in and starts scoring, my mind will change. I still see City being the favourites for it as an example. But with Arsenal, there's just this element of, and for some Arsenal fans, they think this is it. They're not going to get any better. Do you know who Will Stewart is, the Spurs fan?
Yeah, he's on my show at 8 p.m. tonight. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Will was talking about, like, when he looks at the underlying stats with Arsenal, there's that he doesn't think they're going to improve from this point. I think with Arsenal, we've seen some scintillating stuff from City this season. We've seen Liverpool look brilliant this season. We haven't yet seen, in my opinion, Arsenal click as we did last year, and I still think that's to come. So I think a lot of people could end up changing their minds about where Arsenal come if they suddenly click and they go on the 5-10 game winning streak where they're battering teams again. And I felt like against Burnley and I felt against Sevilla that we just started to see the Martinellis and the Sackers get beyond their fullbacks, started to look more dangerous. So in terms
you need
of
to see that against the better teams, though.
No, I agree.
Look,
I agree.
Listen, I think Arsenal are a good team. I do. Honestly, when I say this, I feel like Arsenal fans think I say they're rubbish. I think Arsenal are a very good team. Just because I don't think they're Man City doesn't mean I think they're bad. I think it's going to be really. I could be wrong. You know what? Do you know what the worst that happens if I'm wrong, Terry? I'm wrong. It doesn't matter, right? That's the worst that happens. Yeah. I think that obviously, look, the next game is huge for City Liverpool at the Etihad, right? It's huge because what you can't let City do, you can't let them get a 4-point gap, 7-point gap. Do you know what I mean? Once they get the gap, you're done because then you're relying on Man City losing 3 or 4 more games. I think Liverpool and Arsenal will be, I think it's going to be like that the whole season, if I'm honest. I think there's not a lot between them. Look, there is definitely more to ask. There is more to come from Arsenal. Will and I disagreed on this on my show. We did a who's going to finish top whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we disagreed. He doesn't think that Arsenal are that good. And I said, listen, Arsenal are a good team. The one thing that I've said to you before, said to everyone before, is I feel like it was there for the taking for Arsenal to close that gap. That's the one thing I've said constantly. And I like to think my opinion stays pretty true, like to myself, if that makes sense. I don't come on here week after week and change my opinion. For me, Arsenal, had they gone out and bought a striker, yeah, I don't mean any old striker. I mean, had they gone out and bought that goal scorer, bridge that gap a little bit, had they gone out and bought a couple of options that meant that Saka doesn't have to play every God-given minute of football, I just think they missed a little bit of a trick not doing that. However, they've done so well, not even playing that well, and still one defeat and just tucked in behind. I think they're doing well. I don't think they look as good as or as convincing as last year. Whereas Liverpool obviously had a bad year last year from Liverpool's terms, have started the season well. They've had a couple of hiccups here or there, but they're doing better than last year. Yeah. I can't see anyone else being near them, those three. I can't. I think you look at Spurs. Have you seen Spurs' next 4 games?
Yes. Spurs' next 4 games are hard.
I can't see Spurs being there. I think Aston Villa are a good team, but I do think Aston Villa's away form won't allow them to be up in and around those guys come the end of the season. Brighton aren't good enough. Newcastle too far behind already in terms of the top 3 or 4. So for me, I can't see anything other than that top 3 pulling away soon. That's I agree. My opinion.
Sorry, I got distracted. There's an article that's just come out now that says that Everton will receive a 12 points deduction by the end of this week due to a breach in financial fair play. Commissioners have decided Everton will be bottom of the Premier League with 2 points. It's from a freelance journalist called Steve Brown, OBE. I don't actually know who he is personally. He's from Liverpool. Can
I address one thing? If that's all right.
Yeah,
a lot of the shows I go on, what I see a lot of people saying is whenever I'm talking about Man City, they say that I twerk for them. What I never understand about this is acknowledging who's the best twerking. Like, I could sit here right now as a football fan, Terry, and go, yeah, City are rubbish. They're not winning it. Then I look like an idiot. Then I look like a complete dismissive, delusional idiot.
Yeah, I get called it all the time. Like today, I called out VAR today, and the amount of people going, "You're just defending Arsenal when twerking." I said 3 times in the video, it's nothing to do with Arsenal. It's to do with, it's actually more me calling out Man United not getting a penalty. Have you seen the VAR thing from that Newcastle goal where they state that, yes, we can see the hands on Gabriel, but there's no evidence that the push is hard enough to make him fall over. Cool. Yeah. Well, then where's the evidence that Højlund's grab was enough to spin Rodri 360 and make him fall down? So I'm calling that out, and I go, you're just defending Arsenal. I'm like, it's not about defending Arsenal. It's about, I spoke about vacuum opinions. It's like in a vacuum, you've explained why that Newcastle goal should stand. But then we apply your logic thinking as to why it was right against multiple other decisions, and there's now holes in it. Because all they're really doing is trying to get away with that. They're not just trying to say, shit, we got it wrong. But you get called twerking, and that's what's happening to you here.
Do you know what I'd love?
City are the best, and saying they're the best is weird.
Do you know what I would love? This is the best thing for me. I would love it if everybody suddenly didn't support a football team, right? But had to watch the league. Imagine no one was allowed to support a team and had to watch the league and was asked, who's the best team in that league? You'd say that team, they're the best team.
Yeah.
Right? You would, wouldn't you? The problem is tribalism and biasness has ruined football debate, because anything you say, like, do I want to sit here and say Spurs can win the league? Of course I want to sit here and say it, Terry. It's not true. Do I want to sit here and say Arsenal win the league? Of course I don't. But I'll let you know if I think it's true. So I don't think that acknowledgement of the truth is twerking. You know what I mean? I feel like when I'm always asked about Pep Guardiola and say, yeah, he's the best. Oh, you're twerking for Pep Guardiola. Okay, who's better than him? Now, all of a sudden, give me a name, right? Let's just give me a name hypothetically that someone could say is better than Pep Guardiola.
Klopp.
Okay. Oh, you're twerking for Klopp. It's like, what are you meant to do? What are you meant to do?
Listen, it's all fun and games, but it's become a way of trying to detract from what somebody is saying by saying nothing. So if I make a point, which
Absolutely.
is, I think City will win the league because of X, Y, and Z, you're just twerking, bruv. That's not a response. That's not a debate. That's not an argument. That doesn't debunk what I've said. That's what that typically means is, shit, that's a point I can't debunk, or I have to agree is a correct point. I may not agree with somebody's, and this is maybe where I'm different. I may not agree with your opinion on something, but if I understand your logic, and you hear me say this hundreds of times on shows, I go, I get where you're coming from. So, but that's missing in the world nowadays. I don't agree with what you think, but I understand why you think it, and that typically is more the point here. But if people feel like nowadays, if they admit understanding why you think what you think, they see that as an admission of, well, you're right, I'm wrong, which it never has been. But we live in a very strange era. This is a weird super chat, to be fair. It says, is it possible for a professor to fail a class, Sav? I mean, do you mean fail as in fail their tests, or fail as in be shit at their job? What do you mean?
I have no idea what that's got to do with anything we've talked about today. Look, I have no idea, Chike, about this. I don't know where we're going with this. Is this to do with who fails, where they finish in the league? I don't know. Look, fail a class course. He's gone on to say in the chat, fail a class course. I mean,
of course he could. Of course he could. I mean, of course. I mean, if you do bad, he could foul you. I mean, I don't mean it rude, Chike. I love you, bro. But yeah, if you're not good if you do a bad job in class, he can foul you. That's it. Ron's here says, the problem is, lads, many people just ain't mature, agreeing to disagree. Many people can't. But, bruv, it's immaturity, but we also live in a world now where, listen, I grew up. I'll openly admit, I'm typically speaking a Labour voter. Sometimes I haven't voted for them, but not voted at all, but I'm a Labour voter. But I have friends and mates of mine I grew up with that I know are conservatives, but they're still my mates. We live in a world now where I can't be friends with you because you voted for this, or I can't be friends with you because you listen to this music, or I can't be friends with... I've had a friend of mine, and not just with me personally, it wasn't specific to me, who doesn't come to our little friend gather. We normally gather 3 or 4 times a year as a group of friends. We went to school together. she and her husband don't come anymore because they're vegan. And because when we're there, we eat meat. But we're like, well, you ain't got to eat the meat. We'll cook, we'll make something for you. No, but you guys are eating meat, so we don't want to be around you. That's where I think it's, listen, and I know these are very emotive subjects, but I feel like it's crept its way into football now, where if you don't think my manager's the best manager, I'm just going to say you don't know football, bruv. It's very weird to me. It's very weird to me. The way
listen, I get it, right? I understand that, you know, people are emotionally attached to their teams. And listen, I mean, I'm emotionally attached to Tottenham, but after a while, you have to kind of go, okay, well, the truth is the truth. And yeah, big up Martin, who's one of my channel members. Big up Martin. Yeah, common sense, it's gone. What I don't understand is YouTubers are asked to go on to football shows and then they're asked their opinion about a club, and then it's you're twerking. I don't know what else I'm meant to answer. If Terry says, do you know what I mean? If you say to me, Sav, who's going to win the Premier League? I don't know why I'm meant to say anyone other than Man City. And if I
hear you, I completely hear you. It's strange really to me. Now. People telling me to pause. I'm not going to pause. Firstly, I'm never going to say anything that's going to be crazy because that isn't what I am. I'm just trying to point out that weird polarized thinking and being overly judgmental of people, whether it's about who they think that is going to win the Premier League, right down to whether or not they consume a burger, is strange to me. I was brought up to be a little bit different to that. And I just think the world's got a bit weird, if I'm being honest with you. I really, really do. This here says common sense become a thing of the past. Yeah, we absolutely know. Can't listen anymore. I'm a conservative. But that's just it, isn't it? I don't care to a degree. Like, genuinely, it's like, it's your choice, brother. You're like, I'm not going to, I don't know. I think we should, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to get off that subject because some people do get very upset.
Oh,
very upset about those things. But there we go. Terry, have you ever choked on a chicken? I've choked on a piece of chicken, not on the whole thing. I have a big mouth, but it's yet to be proven to open that wide. But there we go. Listen, I want to thank everybody that has tuned into the show so far today. I've really enjoyed it. Please hit the like button before you go. Very, very important to the terrace that we get that done. Make sure you're hitting the bell notification button as well. Back tomorrow with top 6 and a few other bits and pieces for you. Hussam and I live on Friday as well. So make sure you are all tuning in. Sava, always a pleasure, mate. And I'm sure we'll do this again. Well, we'll do it next week in the build up to the Premier League returning.
Are you, just quickly before you go, are you in Liverpool tomorrow?
No.
No,
and that's the Content Awards. I'd normally be there, but do you know what it is? I work so late, so regularly. I'm just like, I'm going to spend a bit of time with the kids and be around a bit. Like I can do that. So yeah, I'm not going to be up there tomorrow, mate, unfortunately.
No worries, man. No worries.
All right, listen, well, good luck tomorrow at the Football Content Awards, mate. I hope you win. I'm not going to reveal. I was a judge. I was a judge as well. So
I'm not winning mate. I've got as much chance as winning as Spurs do. Don't worry about that.
Who are you up against? Who are you up against?
Big Steve is in my category. So yeah, mate. Listen, I'm just going for a laugh. It's a good event, you know. And the best Spurs have ever done in anything is fourth. So if I finish fourth, I've had a good year.
There we go. All right, then, mate. Listen, you enjoy yourself there tomorrow night. Good luck at the awards. Everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you.